the recording, and you can do your introductions.
Okay. If you're not on mute, please mute yourself so we don't have any background noise. And also, um, let's see here. Well, I'll just go ahead and get started. So I am Neinzel Rasmussen. I'm the Area 2 Commander, and I also serve as the um, uh, Department Training Chair. A couple of other roles that I have. I'm the president of the Utah Boys State Foundation, and I work alongside of Doug Case. And then I also do the Blue Hatter. So for those of you that are new here, if you have post happenings going on, you can always email me with a couple of photos and a short description of tell us what's going on in your posts. It seems to be going pretty well. We've been getting some great information from posts as over the last 3 years. So it's really good to have that communication here. I do see our president, Peggy Robinson, on here. Peggy, I have a PowerPoint here because I hadn't heard from you. So I was going to cruise along with auxiliary. And if you want to interject here, then we'll do that. Does that work for you?
Yeah,
Or
we
do
can
you
do that.
Okay. Okay.
I didn't know you needed a PowerPoint or I would have got you one. I thought it was
You
just a if I wanted to do one.
you don't have to have a PowerPoint, but it's helpful for visuals. I just hadn't heard from you, so I just cruised along. So we'll do this, but I want you to interject as president, okay? Um, so this evening, it'll go in this order. The first 15 minutes is going to be the auxiliary, and then we have the next 15 minutes will be Sons of the American Legion, and NEC Joe Gamond with SAL will be presenting for Sons of the American Legion, and then our last presenter will be another 15 minutes, and that will be Brian Campbell, who is the squadron commander, or excuse me, the chapter um, the chapter is a president director for the writers in chapter 112 in Salt Lake City as part of post 112. So we will get cruising along here. So one of the things is for myself is that I'm a Legionnaire, but I'm also an auxiliary member. I serve as a dual member. My husband is a past president of the auxiliary. He was for 2 years. And a lot of folks don't know that you can be both. And we'll talk about eligibility here in a few more slides going along. But first and foremost, one of the things I remember my husband always talking about in the auxiliary was service, not self. And that is something that when it comes to the auxiliary, they do a tremendous amount of work providing service above themselves to support us as veterans and their families as well. But not just veterans and families, they do a lot of community service as well. They're engaged with the Veterans Administration up at Salt Lake City and around the entire state. The executive director for the auxiliary is housed a couple offices down from Rick Mead, our department adjutant at the Utah State Capitol, and her name is Carrie Fisher. And she handles all the administrative work for the auxiliary in that office, that shared office at the Utah State Capitol building. And so that's first and foremost supporting veterans, families, and communities of the auxiliary. Is there anything else that you'd like to add to that, Peggy?
Um, Nope, that sounds like you got most of it correct.
Okay. So we have this is what we're going to overview here. Who the auxiliary is, a little bit of the history and mission, membership eligibility, programs and impact, and how to get involved. Rick? So it's one of the largest patriotic service organizations. And Peggy, what year is the American Legion Auxiliary in this year?
6, I think.
106 with the American Legion because it started in 1919, alongside the American Legion and Sons of the American Legion. So one of the things that I really appreciate when it comes to the auxiliary is that we are an American Legion family. It's really important that Legionnaires, auxiliary members, SAL members, and riders are all working together alongside one another. One of the greatest things that I've seen is when you see a family environment. Yes, we have our own meetings, we have our own autonomy as far as our posts, our units, our squadrons, and our chapters. But it's really great when we all work together and we get more done as an American Legion family. The purpose is support veterans, active duty military, and their families. I would also add in there probably first responders. First responders have also been an integral part of the American Legion family. They strengthen communities and they preserve patriotism and American values. So what do you, as your experience, Peggy, as president this past year, how do you feel like your purpose has been? Because I know that you have been engaged with being online, I think almost every day through social media. So how is purpose meant to you as president?
I'm not exactly sure what you mean by that. I have a Facebook Live every Monday morning at 10:30. When I was leadership, that was almost 3 years ago, they had mentioned something about doing something scary, but connecting with everybody in your department. And I figured a Facebook Live was scary. And so we started doing that. And really quickly, we don't know how many are actually in Utah, but we had 500. I always joke, we had 500 members, and one of them was from Nigeria and one was from Albania.
Wow.
But we get a massive, not just Utah in on those trainings. It's nationwide. In fact, we just got back from mission training, and I was surprised at how many people said that they use it for somewhat training in their department. And I'm like, oh, seriously, I'm not the one to do that. But it was kind of gratifying that we're getting the message. So we usually just take one. We have quite a few programs on our purpose to serve the veterans and the mission. And I usually take one or two of those a week. And we talk about the possibilities and the other things that each unit or each person could do individually to keep everything going.
Fantastic. Okay, so we're going to do this conversationally. Go ahead, Rick.
Oops.
So our mission in the spirit of service, not self, the American Legion Auxiliary supports the American Legion and honors the sacrifice of those who serve. Go ahead, Rick. So this I want to talk about a little bit further, and I think this is, I think some of them, as far as eligibility and the ability to join, there's been some changes since 2019 when it's come to eligibility for the auxiliary. So for example, in my case, as a female veteran, my husband is eligible now, which he didn't used to be back in 2019 until it was passed through the American Legion to have male spouses be members of the auxiliary. It used to be just strictly a ladies auxiliary, but it's been really meaningful for someone like me as a female veteran to have my spouse be able to support me in that role as an auxiliary member. I know that Paula Stevenson's also on here. Her husband, Chuck, is I think was the first. She's very proud of this. Chuck was the first auxiliary member for the Department of Utah for auxiliary, but he's a triple member. He's SAL and he's Legion and he's also an auxiliary member. So we have very dedicated American Legion family members on here, and obviously you're here. And so as far as eligibility, I would just encourage you, I'm not going to read this verbatim, but I would really encourage you to make sure you read through this and understand who's eligible, because sometimes there's questions that pop up about, well, and it's like 4 generations deep, and it's like, well, no, we're sorry. It's actually grandmothers, mothers, sisters, spouses, and direct, who are adopted under female descendants. So we just need to make sure that everybody understands eligibility when it comes to the auxiliary. Go ahead, Rick. So why membership matters? I know everybody probably gets tired of hearing about membership, but the thing about the auxiliary and the American Legion family as a whole is that without its members, we don't have programs, and without programs, we don't have members, right? So we need both. They're to me both important, and I think maybe Peggy, if you can share with me why you think membership matters and what your experience has been with membership within the units.
Well, there's some things I can do myself. I can take food to the food pantry, but it's a bigger donation if I get my unit to do the same thing with me. The other thing is, I'm looking at your last one, build a generation service. This thing that I went to, mission training, they talked about the junior program. And the junior program, they have a patch program. And the states that are doing the best and growing the most leaders and membership, and they're just striving, are the ones who get the juniors and get them through the patch program. It's different kinds of service that they go through, somewhat, I would say, kind of like the Boy Scouts, but not exactly the same, because you get to pick and choose. The other thing is these kids are coming up, there's like 3 or 4 great scholarships for these kids. And then they become the leaders in the auxiliary and the Legion, and then take it forward.
Right. Great points. Okay, go ahead, Rick. So I have these divided into categories and some of the things that I know the auxiliary does and so much more, but I did some key things here so that you can understand more of the vast support that the auxiliary provides to veterans and their families. First and foremost, at the VA and hospital volunteering. I don't know if everybody knows this, but there's a formal process at the VA through VAVS, and VAVS is VA Voluntary Services. That's what that is. And there are many auxiliary members who volunteer at the VA, not just at the VA up at Salt Lake on its own, but also at the community-based outpatient clinics that are around the state of Utah. Myself, I'm actually a federal volunteer myself. There's a process to become a volunteer at the VA. And if you are interested in doing that, I would certainly encourage you to do that if you have the time to do a few volunteer hours a week or once a month. They're always in need of support at the VA and the hospital up there with the thousands of veterans who come through their doors between Salt Lake campus as well as around the state and even beyond in Idaho, in Elko, and folks that come in from Wyoming especially. They also have services at the VA where there's veterans who are coming in from out of state, not just the ones that surround the boundaries of Utah, but also even beyond the scope of that for hospital services that might not be offered local in especially more rural areas. So if you're interested in volunteering as an American Legion family member, I certainly would encourage you to do that if you have time to do that, in addition to all the duties we do within the American Legion. So care packages and family support. This is just an example in veteran and military support. There's been units that have put together care packages and get very engaged in family support. And maybe if you could talk a little bit about that, Peggy, on what your experiences has been in veteran and military support and things that you think have been effective for auxiliary units particularly.
It kind of depends on the ones closer to Hillfield. The care packages work really good. Outlying, they are finding the 2 things like letters to honor flight and letters to deployed are working better in those areas. They are really good, especially in the outlying areas away from the big metropolis. What they're doing to care for the families, because they're a little farther away from the VA. And I know that Vernal has a great group that brings guys out here 2 to 3 days a week. to the VA in support to help them, so that, especially the ones that can't drive themselves.
Yeah. Perfect. And last but not least, but certainly one of the major programs, and I'm certainly a strong advocate for, is the Be the One program. That is definitely an American Legion family mission across the nation. You'll probably always hear about me talking about this. I think I became known as the Be the One state commander, but I think that suicide prevention and advocacy, not just among our veterans, but also their family members. We have many that are dealing with mental and emotional health matters within the four walls of their homes. And we certainly encourage there to be chairmans or liaisons within the posts, squadrons, units, and chapters. There's a lot of opportunity. You can go to betheone.org. There's a ton of information there, as well as on the legion.org website. So I would just I so appreciate the things that happen to support us as veterans from the auxiliary, because we simply can't do it without the support of auxiliary and SAL and the writers. It's just, we're very grateful as veterans that this happens. So Rick, if you'll go ahead. So youth and education programs, Peggy touched on this a little bit, scholarships and grants, of course, and I put Utah Girls State underneath because there are scholarships outside of Utah Girls State, but and grants that you can locate on the auxiliary website. There's a lot of information there. I put the website for the auxiliary in the chat at the beginning of this session. So make sure you copy and paste that and take a look at the auxiliary website. It's a massive website with a lot of information, but take a look at and just peruse around it and take a look at the scholarships and grants that are available to support not just children and youth, but veterans and families, grants that are also available to apply for. So lots of information on the website. Is Cindy on here? I think I saw Cindy Clausen on here. Cindy on here, Peggy?
Yeah, she's on here with me. Hi, Joe.
Okay. So Utah Girls State, I know that for Utah Boys State, we just started registration on February 1st. For Utah Girls State, when did registration, or when, how does that work, Peggy or Cindy?
Cindy there? They had a pre-registration.
Go ahead, Peggy.
They had a pre-registration up until February 1st. So Sunday it went live. They are in the middle of taking applications. I know that our unit and quite a few units in District 2 have actually met with the counselors at the school, get them prepared. And they are starting to set up interviews with the girls personally through February, and then they'll get all the paperwork in and fees by March 15th, I think the date. That part as it gets closer, I know, but that's kind of in process right now to get. The big thing on that is we're trying to get 250 girls this year for the 250 celebration. We'll see if we make it.
That's a great idea. So speaking of that, I'll tag on Peggy about this. So if you don't know about it, well, you probably know about America 250 happening this year, which I've sent out some actually very current information to your department adjutant today about America 250 and things that you can engage with as posts and families within our Legion family. I know for us in Area 2, for the 3 counties that we have in that area, which is Salt Lake and Tooele and Utah County, we are engaging in a project called USA 250 and this is an American Legion program that's called USA 250 to support America 250 for the 250th anniversary this year. And so that is 250 buddy checks. So just like what Peggy's talking about, it certainly could be something that American Legion family can do collectively within their own post units and squadrons and chapters to do buddy checks and meet that 250. We'll be doing it over the American Legion birthday, March 15th through the 17th. And the Legion birthday is on March 15th, and we're doing it over a 3-day span. And we just encourage everybody to jump on board with that and do buddy checks among our Legion family. And certainly it helps potentially with membership, but that's not the number one reason that you're calling. You're calling because you're checking up, right? So those are the buddy checks, and then citizenship and leadership education definitely comes through Utah Girls State, but also through training opportunities that the auxiliary offers throughout the year. Okay, Rick, go ahead. I'm moving quickly because we got a lot to cover tonight. Community service, some fantastic things that I've seen in community service with the auxiliary, with homeless veteran outreach, the food insecurity programs. I know the auxiliary has been involved with the VA. They've opened up a fridge up there and have donated so much food for food insecurity. There are some things around that currently right now with the VA Food Hub that we can't just donate food. And if you have further questions about food insecurity and wanting to get engaged and involved with that further, please get a hold of me as I sit on the executive committee for VAVS for partnership, fundraising, and finance. And so if you'd like to know more about what we're doing there to address the food insecurity, please reach out to me and I'll give you some additional information. Disaster relief, this is something that I know on the Legion side, we have the TFA program for temporary financial assistance. I know that within this state, but particularly in other departments as well, you have the NEF, the National Emergency Fund through the auxiliary. And that's been something that's been very helpful, especially as we know this year in the US, there's been a lot of, over the past year, such as Texas, for example, where disaster relief has been really important to have available to help families who lost loved ones in a flood or during hurricane season, etc. Go ahead, Rick. All right, Americanism, patriotism. We are in the American Legion. There is no doubt about it. We are all about Americanism and patriotism. And so flag education has happened in the auxiliary. And then Peggy, if you could talk a little bit about the POPPY program.
The POPPY program, and I'm going to sneak into the essay too, if that's okay. The POPPY program is basically the Friday before Memorial Day is Poppy Day. And it all started with the crepe paper poppies that were made by the veterans, and the auxiliary's job was to go out, disabled veterans, and the auxiliary's office job was to go out and disperse them for funds, which would come back and pay for the livelihoods of the disabled veterans before we had the great programs that we have now that help take care of them somewhat. But we still put, if we buy a poppy kit and we sell it, say we sell it for $100, which is pretty low for, and then our job is to send 40 back to the department that goes into making sure it goes to disabled veterans. That's why you see the crepe paper on Memorial Day. And we just started at Veterans Day also, because people really like them. They're fun to put around a bag or a zipper.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is we do have an Americanism essay contest, which Donna Burke is our Americanism chair. And they've got an essay this year that I thought was really fun. There's based on the different grades, starting with 3rd and 4th, but they have to write celebrating America's 205th birthday and the veterans who fought for our freedom. So it makes the kids kind of do some thought, and they're kind of reading them the last couple of years. They've been kind of amazing. So it gets kids thinking about veterans and getting the mind shift to what opportunities are available in this country because of veterans.
Which is so great, because I think that ties into the last point which is civic and legislative engagement, right? And when we have our children and youth getting involved with civic education and things that are happening legislatively to help support veterans and their families, it's really great to see our children and youth involved with that because they are the next generation that is going to be taking care of us, if you can believe that. So that's Americanism, patriotism for right now. Go ahead, Rick. We're getting close. So the impact is substantial. There are literally millions of volunteer hours. And of course, with the American Legion family, between the consolidated post reports, the consolidated squadron reports for SAL, and then the units under the auxiliary also have a responsibility to submit reports for volunteer hours as well. There is millions of dollars that are raised annually. And then of course, I'm really proud of the fact that the American Legion family changes lives worldwide. It's really remarkable. There's 55 departments within the American Legion, of which obviously some of those departments are actually outside of the US, for example, like the Department of Latin America. So there's really amazing things going on a worldwide level that the auxiliary is involved with to support us as veterans and families. Let's see. Go ahead, Rick. So one of the passions about nonprofit sector, which is what the American Legion falls under, and so does the auxiliary, because they're a separate entity, but they fall under the umbrella of the American Legion, is that it fills gaps that a system can't. In other words, nonprofit work fills in the areas where the federal or state government, for example, are not doing. And that's the importance of nonprofit organizations. And it offers that human connection between all of us as we continue to serve within our nation. And then, of course, more importantly, strengthening veterans and their families. And that's the great part about what the auxiliary and the SAL and writers do. Okay, go ahead, Rick. So what we're going to tell you is that if your post does not have a unit that is part of your area, consider getting hold of your president, Peggy, and her group of volunteers that work with her, or Carrie Fisher at the office to see or join a local unit or charter a unit and start one. And there's a lot of information behind that alone. That's a separate training unto itself, but the auxiliary can help you do that. If you want to volunteer or fundraise to support, that's what units do, and they do great work out there. We can't do it without them. And then advocate and share the mission of what service not self is. That sometimes we might kind of get lost in our own worlds, and it's really great to have an opportunity to get outside of ourselves and serve. It changes our perspective. Go ahead. So together in service, not self, we honor the past, serve the present, and inspire the future. And that's my closing thought on this. Peggy, how about you? Any closing thoughts?
Yes, I would like to thank all the veterans on this call because we wouldn't have this organization. Sorry, I'm gonna cry. We wouldn't have this if you hadn't signed on the dotted line to begin with. So thank you so much from the auxiliary.
Thank you so much, Peggy. And go ahead to the end. This is just a last slide here. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat, and we'll get those answered by the end of this session. We have 2 more to do between the SAL and writers. This phone number that's on here is the phone number to Carrie's office at the Capitol building, as well as the email. There's certainly a lot more phone numbers and emails out there, but these are the main ones. And then as far as Peggy as your president, she is certainly approachable. And Peggy, I'd encourage you to put your email in the chat if you can, so people can contact you if they have any questions about ALA at all, any of the above, so that you have that ability to do that as president of the auxiliary this year. So thank you so much for being on here for auxiliary. And now is Joe Gamond on here? He's supposed to be on here. Have you seen him, Rick?
I have not.
Okay. So we're going to talk about SAL. Who's comfortable talking about SAL?
I can start.
Okay, go ahead, Rick.
Okay, the Sons of the American Legion it was created back in 1932 as a program within the American Legion to honor and the service of Legionnaires. It's composed of male descendants of veterans. It functions as part of the Legion family in focusing on supporting veterans, children, and American traditions. The organization has grown, and it was actually established during the 14th National Convention in Portland, Oregon, in September of 1932. Specifically, its purpose was created to preserve American traditions and support veterans and teach patriotism. It was identified back when it was originally formed as something that would be beneficial because they were looking at the children of veterans and felt that it would be important to provide something that would help them both understand and become involved more in the traditions of the United States of America. While having its own membership, and this is important, the SAL is not a separate entity. So unlike the auxiliary, the Sons of the American Legion is actually a program within the American Legion. And so if you've got a post with a detachment, then you are with a squadron, that squadron operates as part of or a program within the post for that specific area. There's been a lot of confusion about this lately because legally, when the American Legion was formed, it specifically stated that within the American Legion, at least 75% of the members needed to be veterans within the department. And when you take a look at the Sons of the American Legion, that split of 75-25 needs to be maintained. That has not been a huge issue, at least not in the Department of Utah. But I know that in some cases, and this is something that our National Judge Advocate, Mark Seavey, has brought up in the past, and that is that if a post is being audited by the IRS, especially if they've got a canteen or something, and they ask them for their membership, they don't include the SAL members, only the TAL members, if you will, those veterans that are part of that post. So the SAL works alongside the American Legion and the American Legion Auxiliary together, forming the Legion family. As mentioned before, it is all as part of the family. Eligibility. I am a member of the SAL as well as being a member of the American Legion because my dad was served in the Army for 30 years. And so eligibility right now is for male descendants, including stepsons and adopted sons of veterans who served in the U.S. Armed Forces during specified periods of conflict, World War I, December 741 to present, are all eligible. Key programs that the SAL is involved in is volunteerism, including VA hospital. This is something that Nine-Zell mentioned earlier with the auxiliary as it relates to VAVS, the Veteran Services part of the Veterans Administration, and children and youth projects. They do fundraising, and the 10 Ideals, a youth-focused program that teaches patriotism, health, knowledge, training, honor, faith, helpfulness, courtesy, reverence, and comradeship. So I will close there and say this is as much as I can put in filling in for this presentation. And is there anything that anybody that is very familiar with the SAL thinks I have left out that is particularly important?
I think what's important on the SAL is that they continue to grow on a nationwide basis. I think they're about 400,000 to 500,000 members.
Yeah.
Is my understanding. Here in Utah, we're struggling with SAL. And I think a lot of this is about getting solid leadership into places. We've got great leaders, but we need support from our sons and our grandsons to participate in SAL. So if you have or you can be a dual member, or you want to have a squadron be chartered. In my state commander year, I chartered Squadron 140 because state commanders have to sign off on charters. And my post is 140 in Riverton, and we have a Squadron 140. And even though we kind of have essentially cottage meetings, it's on a smaller scale because we're only a couple years old. There's things that we are engaged in as I say we, because my husband's an SAL member and an auxiliary member both, but they serve a really vital, important part to supporting veterans. And then there's a great opportunity for sons and grandsons and fathers and grandfathers to work together and serve together. So I would just encourage you, if you have questions about SAL, to reach out to us at the department, and we can help support you in that effort if you're interested in opening and having a squadron as part of your post, because it serves as a squadron to the post. It's attached. It's a friendship between both the post and the squadron. So
I was
you.
able to look up something while you were talking, and specifically on membership. As of 2024, the SAL had reached a record high of 397,000.
Okay,
so that's where they, and so it was pretty close to what your estimate was there as well. But I wanted to provide that as a little bit backup information.
I think what's cool about the SAL is that even though they're at the numbers they are nationwide, between them and the writers, they raise the most money nationwide. So even though their numbers are smaller, they raise millions of dollars across the U.S. for veterans as part of the American Legion. So don't underestimate the power of the auxiliary, the SAL, and the writers. They do great work. So any other questions or thoughts with SAL? Or how many of you are SAL members, just out of curiosity?
I am.
3 of you? Okay. All right. It's good to know. So if you're a veteran, you also are eligible to be an SAL member. You can be a dual member. When you go to National Convention, which this year will be in Louisville, Kentucky, it is really quite remarkable to see how many SAL members are there and what they're doing. Pretty cool. So, okay. If there's not anything else, I'm going to turn the time over to Brian Campbell. He is online here. He'll need to unmute himself. He is the chapter, I think they're directors or captain. Captain. They're captains. Chapter captain for the chapter, or director. Directors, captains. He is the director for chapter 112 in South Salt Lake. So Brian, I'm going to turn the time over here to you. You've got about 15 minutes and we'll go from there.
Awesome. So, hello everybody. I've never done this before, and I've got I received a text from a good friend of mine this morning to ask me to do this. So I'm going as I go. I'm filling it out. And as far as the SAL go, we're 104,000 strong. 404,000 strong. So,
okay.
As far as the Legion Riders, our organization, our detachment, whatever you want to call us, it started with a group of individuals, about 5 guys in Michigan in 1993, and we've grown from 5 guys to over 130,000 riders in 5 states and 50 states and 5 countries. We are a big contributor to the Veterans and Children's Fund. We have excuse me, let me back up again. I'm not organized. I haven't done this before. Let me back up and say that the Legion Riders are all about promoting the message of the American Legion and the 4 pillars of the American Legion. Let me grab my little notes here. We're very involved with the different communities that we were a part of in supporting organizations like Ride to Prevent Suicide, um, combat veterans, the Marine Riders, and all the other organizations that fill in, um, Thanksgiving Heroes, so on and so forth. And the purpose for that, and we're part of different groups. Like there's a group of riders in the Salt Lake Valley, the Utah County Valley, and we're just out there and we wear our vest, which are uh, American Legion rider vests with patches in the back, and we strike up conversations with those people and tell them what we do. We're not a club like a lot of these groups, and we're just fun loving. We're not after being one percenters and troublemakers. We promote the vision and the mission of the American Legion. We do a lot of funeral escorts, which is quite an honor and a privilege. Um, and then we're one of the largest contributors for the Veterans and Children's Foundation. Um, on average, for the last several years, we've raised over $800,000 on average over the last several years for that fund, which is pretty exciting. That's a big deal. Uh, each year that there is a convention, um, that there's a national convention, depending on the location of that convention, there are typically there's a route decided that's typically several states away, and everybody accumulates and rides to that convention over a 4 or 5 day period, which is going to be pretty exciting when we have our national convention here in Utah. We'll have about 250 to 300 motorcycles pull into Salt Lake, and that's going to be awesome. Think about that. If you've ever been around 100 motorcycles at once, that's pretty exciting. But 2 to 300, that's going to be great. Um, some of the states, a lot of the states that are involved in the American Legion Rider program that aren't very close to like Louisville, Kentucky, or to Tampa Bay, they will have rides. Arizona is really involved in this. They will organize a ride within that state and raise money, and that will also go to the Veteran and Children's Foundation. That has not been done in Utah, although it will be. I see that in the very near future, because we want to represent. Um, Currently, we're very small in numbers and we don't have very many posts that are involved, but we encourage you, and I put in the chat here my name, my number, and my and I'll do it again really quick if it'll paste. Please contact me if you know of anybody in your post that rides motorcycles that wants to get it together, men and women that have a lot of fun and while serving veterans, their families, and our communities. Um, there you go.
Thank you, Brian. So one of the things I know about the riders, which Brian referred to about the ride that happens over a 4 or 5 day period, that's called the Legacy Run. And the Legacy Run has been so impactful. And when you're at National Convention, which by the way, all of you are invited to come to National Convention, all members are invited to come. It's really a tremendous experience. For those of you that have been to National Convention, there's a lot that happens there. You don't realize how big the American Legion is until you show up to National Convention. It's pretty remarkable, and it's a great opportunity to have conversations with other folks and get ideas for them and get inspired about things that you can do to help improve your own department within the American Legion family. So for now, we're getting close to wrapping up here.
Could I say something about the riders?
Sure, go ahead.
Oh, Sheila. Hi, Sheila.
Hi.
Hi, Sheila.
I'm on my phone, so I just had to press and I can't even. Okay, there you are. We do have a ride out of Post 19 for Flag Day in June every year that's been going on for a dozen or more years. And so look forward to some information about that.
Wonderful. If you want, speaking of rides and anything happening with the auxiliary or SAL, please send your flyers to me for the Blue Hatter so that information can get out to the entire department, because the Blue Hatter is sent out statewide from our department adjutant. And it's also, if you're not receiving that, you also can access it on utlegion.org, which is the department's website, under training and news. Okay. So if you're not getting that, or if you'd like to have it emailed instead, and you're not up as part of the email string, you need to get your email to Rick. Okay. I'm just going to put here in the chat, Sheila, that the Flag Day ride is happening at Post 19 or with Post 19 in Lehigh, and to follow up with you if that's okay. If they have questions.
That's fine. Or
Okay.
or Brian.
Or Brian.
Because we try to do it together.
Perfect. Okay, awesome. And if maybe you guys could just, one of you just talk about what is the eligibility requirement to be an American Legion Rider?
So it's very simple. As long as you're a card carrying Legionnaire, all you need is a motorcycle that's legal with registration insurance. And that's basically all there is to it. It's very simple.
Okay, so Legionnaires, SAL, and auxiliary are eligible. If you are a card carrying American Legion family member, you're also eligible to be an American Legion Rider. Okay. And I'm like myself, I don't have a motorcycle, but I still attend. There's been events that I've attended both in Utah and outside of Utah in my car. And I'll just follow at the end and support the riders. So don't be afraid to do that too, because it's pretty cool to see what they do. It's really amazing. So
we're trying to put together at Post 19, we're trying to put together a statewide event for June 6th, which is a Saturday, which is also V-Day, D-Day, excuse me, which will have a parade on State Street that'll go south from 3900 South up around the valley and down State Street from the state capitol. We also will have a barbecue and a party in our backyard. And there's a lot more information to come. There's a lot of planning that we're working on right now, but we want to invite the entire state of Utah to be involved in this. It will be a Be the One event, also with focus on PTSD, and the American Legion. We want the community to know about the American Legion, not only through the motorcycle ride, but through the party and the event. So more to come on that.
Wonderful. Thank you, Brian. Okay. There was a couple of other questions we're going to address here quickly. The first question from, let's see, Tom. Nope, let me back up here. Doug asked the question, why do squadrons, which is a program, need to be chartered? SAL. Rick?
Actually, what I just did is to send out, and I sent it to Tom because he asked a question relative to that about SAL being underneath the EIN for the post. And I'm going to actually defer that answer to the legal opinion that was put out by Mark Seavey, our national judge, national judge advocate back in November of 2025, which really outlines all the requirements for a program within the American Legion in order to or be part of the organization in the way it was intended from the IRS and the way it was chartered through Congress. So rather than me trying to answer that question, I will provide that information to anybody that wants it on the call. Tom, I just sent that to you, and so Tom Hunshammer. And in order to answer to your question, and that's where I'm going to leave it so that I do not get sideways with what Mark is trying to communicate from his National Judge Advocate's office.
So maybe Rick, if that information just can be sent out to maybe
I will send it out to the normal suspects and ask them to send it out to others.
Yeah.
So I will send it out to my department, PDC, and district and area commanders.
Perfect. Yeah, because Craig Carlson wants it as well.
Well, I'm sorry that I asked the question.
Oh no,
it's a good question.
No, it's a great question. And actually, Doug had that question from the onset, and I know Doug and myself have talked about that as well. It's like, why do we have to have squadrons chartered? And you know, I agree with Rick in this, that I think it's important to get that straight from the mouth of National, because there's been questions about that for some time. So Good questions. I'm glad you asked. Any other questions, suggestions, concerns, anything that's been presented tonight between the auxiliary, SAL, and writers? Everything's perfect. Wonderful. Okay. How many of you are receiving the Blue Hatter? Okay. If you're not, please get a hold of Rick. Make sure he has your email, or go to utlegion.org. That is where all the training information is also posted. It's also been in several previous Blue Hatters that I've posted that has all the training information. Some of you were in attendance at the December DEC, where there was a resolution that I put forward for Utah Legion College. If you are curious about that or interested in being an instructor, please get a hold of me. This is something that is growing and things that I've been working on for Utah Legion College that will be submitted to the DEC when it's ready. But there's some steps and flow of processes that have to happen in order for that to get off the ground. But it's definitely a work in progress. It's also extending the invitation to the auxiliary, the SAL, and the writers. If they want to be a formal instructor under the Utah Legion College to support what they do as part of their auxiliaries to support veterans and their families, please get a hold of me as well. You can email me, text me, call me. I can meet you in person. I can answer any questions that you have about that to address Utah Legion College. I do want to be clear that there is a difference between what we've been doing in training over the last 3 years through Zoom, which I think, we've had anywhere between 11 to, it's now on average about 20 out of, 5,000 plus members in the state of Utah, but, we're getting somewhere. We're getting used to it. So if you're interested, I need you to send me a formal email letting me know that you're interested in being an instructor and for what you want to be an instructor for, particular topics that you think that you have a skill set in that you think would be helpful to support the Utah Legion College. I want you to keep in mind that the Utah Legion College is not training, it's education. And there's a difference between training and education. The people who were extending invitations to come to Utah Legion College are those that are really serious about leadership and that want to understand how they can run their posts, their districts, and department collectively better. And we have a wealth of information and resources, and the Legion nationally has put together a lot of information to really help support what we do on a local level within our departments. The question is do we implement it, and what does that look like as we go? So as the training chair right now, I am working on putting together a training committee of individuals who will work assertively. And when I mean assertively, I'm a person who works pretty quickly. So if you're serious about sitting on this committee, we'll certainly take that into consideration. It is something that is going to take some serious work and time on your part if you're going to sit on that committee. Okay. Please reach out to me individually if you'd like to have a discussion about that with me. I want to make sure that we open this up, and I thought this was a good time to talk about this tonight since we had auxiliary SAL and writers on here as well. So it is an American Legion family effort. Okay. Because some of our members are also dual members, and so they wear a couple hats. Like myself, I'm the LAL, I'm on the auxiliary side, I'm the legislative chair, but on the Legion side, I'm the Area 2 commander. So, you know, some of us wear a few hats, right? So, any other questions or thoughts? Okay. Having none, thank you so very much for being on here tonight. We even got done 4 minutes early. So go enjoy the rest of your evening tonight, and we'll see you at the next session next month. We only have March, April, and May left in training, and then that will wrap up the training sessions for the year. We do not do training during the summer, and we reconvene in September. Okay? All right. Thanks, everybody.